Happy Friday! Welcome back to We the Future. I'm Bryce Wheeler. We've got a great show for you today. A lot to discuss, a lot to recap from the week, and a lot of big breaking headlines in the news. Some I'm sure you are well aware of, others I'm pretty sure you're not, which is why, of course, I do my best to make sure I become a good, reliable source that you can turn to. This week, we're wrapping up a crazy week in the entire Erika Kirk saga. I've got a lot of opinions to share about what we are seeing and why specifically I believe that this is one of the biggest psyops that we have ever experienced in the history of our great nation. So we'll dive into that. We'll also get into what is going on in Venezuela, what the media isn't telling you in terms of why we're in Venezuela. We're also going to talk about some more spending that our government has approved. It always seems like this time of the year, you expect the wife, you expect your girlfriend, you expect others to be spending some of your hard-earned money in excess. But what you forget is that the federal government is still open. And so they will be doing some of that very same things, spending lots of money, not really telling you about it, but also not really asking if you're for or against it. We got all that to dive into and much, much more. So let's get after it. Welcome back to We the Future. Let's go. So let us begin with the recap of what we saw this week from Erika Kirk and Turning Point USA. I said earlier that I believe it's a psyop, and I stand by that. When it first happened, when Charlie Kirk was first assassinated in September here in Utah, of course, overcome by a lot of different emotions, sad, frustration, angry, and it was pretty cut and dry, so they told us, and when I say they, the FBI, Kash Patel, our federal government, it was the local law enforcement, right? It was wrapped up really quick, too quick, right? And I began to ask questions fairly early, right? I began to ask questions probably at least a day or two after everything was quote unquote wrapped up and solved, because it doesn't make any sense, right? And I'm not going to use this as the time or the platform to just dive deep into all of the investigation. We're just going to break it down bit by bit throughout the next little bit. The reason why I didn't believe the narrative that we were told that was being pushed at all was it just had so many different holes. So many different holes. Now, I don't care if you believe that a foreign government was involved, if you believe that there was foreign military officers involved. I don't care if you believe that our government killed Charlie Kirk. I don't care what conspiracy you believe when it comes to Charlie Kirk. I don't. What I do think is very important for us as Americans with our eyes open, who are waking up to the truth every single day, I think it's extremely important that we at least establish this baseline. Tyler Robinson did not kill Charlie Kirk. I think that's something that you have to establish right now. And if you and I disagree from that point, no offense, but you probably aren't going to like the rest of this episode, because Tyler Robinson could not have killed Charlie Kirk. Let's just look at the sole fact, and we knew this, the FBI told us this, that on Discords, on different social media platforms, dark web alley chat rooms from the LGBTQ plus community, there were multiple posts and multiple people talking about Charlie Kirk being killed days before it actually took place. Multiple people, not just Tyler Robinson and his gay lover friend that they shared an apartment together. multiple people were messaging, talking, and posting about Charlie Kirk being killed at his event in Utah. So for you to believe that he was the only sole shooter, it was just a lone mass shooter with one gun that was easy to take down and shove in his pant leg and jump off of a building and stuff behind a chicken coop in some back side street next to Utah Valley University. If you believe that, go for it. But probably recommend not tuning into the rest of the episode, because that alone has so many holes in it. And if you're going to tell me he was the only person that did it, explain to me how we can have multiple chat logs from other people talking about Charlie Kirk being killed. That alone blows the entire thing up. I'm not saying that I believe that Charlie Kirk's death is a psyop. I'm not saying that Charlie Kirk is still alive, that he's, as some people say, in New Zealand at a camp called Valhalla, that it was a fake, it was a hologram, it was CGI in front of us. I'm not saying any of that. But what I am saying is this. I believe the events of Charlie Kirk's death and everything that we've seen for the last 3 months is a giant psyop. Now, whether you choose to believe that or not is fine. But let's take a trip down memory lane. And hopefully, by doing so, we can learn from our past so that we can prevent it happening in the future, right? Because that's the entire goal of history. That's why we learn about it in our schools. That's why we talk about it constantly with our parents, with our kids, with our family and friends. You talk about history, you learn about history so that history doesn't repeat itself, right? You probably finished that sentence before I did. Let's go down memory lane. COVID-19. I don't care what your beliefs are about COVID-19, but what I do care is that the truth is now being established and is now coming into the light. Multiple documents, multiple news articles have been being released in the last couple of weeks and months stating that the COVID-19 vaccine was actually harmful to people, that it caused multiple heart complications, that it is the reason multiple people are dead, right? Not just multiple, right? That's clearly undermining the situation. Thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, millions of people are dead. So if you've followed me on my personal accounts for a while, if you're a friend or family member and you're tuning into the show, you've known that I haven't bought into the COVID-19 entire situation from the very beginning. If you're new here, let me give you a refresher. I didn't believe it at all. Not at all. I barely wore a mask. And when I say barely, the only time that I wore a mask was on an airplane when people were looking. Other than that, I didn't wear a mask going to the grocery store. I didn't wear a mask going to the gym. I didn't wear a mask out in public because the mask wasn't going to do jack all. And I got told by multiple people at the gyms, at grocery stores. I got called out, followed, got into a couple verbal arguments with people. Probably not my best day, but I didn't believe any of it. Did I ever get sick? No, I never did. Never tested positive for COVID. If I did get sick, it was a cold, it was a flu. I was good. The reason why I bring all that up is to not pat myself on the back, but to establish that I was saying all of these things back in 2020, late 2019, all the way throughout the times until now. I didn't buy into it. And now we are seeing the truth come out. And so once again, this isn't the call everything a psyop episode, but if we're going to call something else a psyop, it's going to be the COVID-19 era. That was a ploy. That was a psyop. That was our government seeing how much control they have on us, the people. Can they establish who's an essential worker or not? Can they tell us what we can and can't do, who we can and can't see or visit, where we can and can't go, and if we can ever re-enter the workforce, the public, the grocery store? Can we ever get back to that? What were they wanting us to do, or what hoops were they wanting us to jump through in order to get back to living our normal everyday lives? That was the first part of what I believe is going to be multiple different controlled events that are, their main goal is to control us. These aren't just going to be random events. We're going to see them happen for years. Because what COVID-19 established and proved to our government and those people who are in power is that we are sheep. We will blindly follow whatever we're told to do so that we can get back to watching our shows, going to our favorite restaurants, going to the grocery store, basically doing anything and everything we need to do for basic human survival. That's what COVID-19 established. So why do we talk about that? Well, let's learn from it. Because what we're doing right now is we're falling right into the same bullshit trap that's being fed to us by the mainstream media, by our government officials, by our favorite 3-letter agencies, the CIA, the FBI, the DOJ. All of those are now doing exactly what they did 5 years ago during the COVID-19 pandemic. And yet, what do? We feed right into it. We continue to scroll on our phones, and we don't wake the hell up. So, the Erika Kirk, the Charlie Kirk, the Turning Point USA psyop. Call it whatever you want. Fine. Let's establish this. This past week, if you haven't been on social media, if your social media doesn't look like mine, every single person, podcaster, news source, news agency, hell, random people that just showed up on my feed, they were posting about what's happening right now between Erika Kirk and Candice Owens. If you've listened to the episode that we released on Wednesday, that's exactly what we were talking about. And there's a few corrections that I'd like to change, that I'd like to make. I stand by what I said on Wednesday in the terms of, this isn't about whose team are you on. Are you team Jacob? Are you team Edward? Oh my gosh, he sparkles in the sun. Oh my gosh, his clothes rip off and he's got washboard abs. This is about truth and censorship. This is about Candice searching for the truth and Erika and Turning Point USA wanting to censor and control the truth. Whether you disagree with me or not on what is happening right now, that's another baseline that we need to establish very quickly. Because from the very moment that Charlie Kirk was killed, everybody was quick to form their opinions. And yet, as we've moved on, weeks turned into month turns into months, we now have seen that nobody else except for Candice Owens and a few other people, right? You've got people out there like Ian Carroll, Candice Owens. They're looking for the truth. They're trying to figure out, did Tyler Robinson commit this? Do we actually have enough hard evidence that points in his direction? Or is this just another fake and gay event trying to be pulled over our eyes so that we can just once again fall into the trap of mindlessly believing in whatever we're told? So from the very beginning, there's only been a few people who have actually wanted to search for the truth. And what's crazy to me, and I hope is crazy to you, is Erika Kirk has stayed relatively silent on the entire events of her husband's death. Now, pause, timeout. We'll take a timeout on the court. I am not here to judge, nor is it my place or position on how you, someone else, Erika Kirk, how I grieve. That's not my place to judge. I have no room to judge. I don't want to judge. We've been asked and commanded by Jesus Christ not to judge. What I want to do, though, is to question, why on earth would Erika Kirk not welcome Candice Owens' questions? Why would Erika Kirk not support somebody looking into the death of their husband? If I got shot and killed on the side of the street and the cops just swept it up real quick within a matter of hours and everything just smelt and reeked like rotted fish, I would hope and pray that some of my friends, my wife, my family would do a little bit more digging into what was actually the truth. That's just me. I would hope and pray that they would do that. And I would hope that they would allow other people to question what happened. But yet from the very beginning, Erika Kirk has stayed relatively silent. Why? Why not welcome people questioning who killed your husband? Why not welcome people looking into it? Erika Kirk this week on Fox News or CBS, I forget which event of her great book tour she stopped at and said this, but she said that she and we trust the judicial system, that we trust our government, that we trust the whole process of looking into and investigating things. Just hard stop, woman. I don't trust our judicial system at all. I don't trust our government at all. So for you to then say that you trust it, I mean, if you do, that's fine. I'm not here to judge, but it makes no sense to me. I talked about it on Wednesday, and I'm going to say it again today. This is very similar to the assassination of President Kennedy. And I'm going to talk about it a little bit more later on and give you a couple reasons as to, we'll draw a Venn diagram, right? I'll give you the reasons why they're kind of in the middle together. Why the middle section isn't just a sliver like you drew in school. It's a little bit bigger, a little bit chunkier. If Jackie Kennedy, weeks after her husband was shot and killed, jumped on the news, did a little news tour, and said, please stop looking into who killed my husband. Just stop. Just let's not even look at that. We trust what we're being told. We trust the system. We trust our government. Just don't do it. Right? You guys have probably seen the video already. Erika Kirk, a little wide eyes. Stop. If Jackie did that, all of us would, if we were around then, right? Ask your grandparents this question if they're still alive. If this happened and we were there to view it, all of us would stop and go, hold up, hold the phone. What? Jackie, you want us to stop investigating into who killed your husband? Why? That makes no sense. You don't want us to inquire or do a little bit of dirt digging up to see if the narrative that we're being fed is actually true? What? But yet we all look at Erika Kirk, and she tells us to stop looking into it. We watch that on the news. We watch that on our social media feeds 5 times within 30 seconds. And all of us go, yeah, let's stop. What are we doing? She's a grieving widow. She lost her husband. We got to stop questioning what happened. Let's just turn a new leaf. Let's turn a page. I refuse to do that. Not because I want to go after a grieving widow, not because I want to dig up the memories and the legacy of her husband and make it sting just a little bit longer. It's going to hurt her and her family for a very long time. Why I want to continue discussing it and why I think what Candice is doing is important is because right now we live in a time where you can have 2 things. You can't have both of them, right? You can have truth that is crystal clear, truth that all of us can get behind, that we can all agree is the truth. Or you can have dystopian truth, twisted, mangled, changes like the wind, changes every single day. You can have the narrative. You can't have both. We have to decide which one we want. And this is with anything. Throw in something into this machine, it'll tell you what is the truth and what is the narrative. We're constantly told in our society, we're constantly told as human beings, American citizens, that there is truth and then there's the new age truth. You go back 20 years ago, 30 years ago, not even that long, around the time that I was born. It was man and it was woman. It was male and it was female. And that's it. Now, you have to try to explain to your kids or explain to just anybody why there's a drop-down menu on any form online of 11,000 different genders because somebody decided they woke up and they felt like something random and they just decided that's a gender. You get the truth or you get the narrative. Which one do you want? It's the same thing with anything else that we have in our life. So when we look at this entire event, what's happening right now between Erika Kirk and Turning Point USA and Candice Owens, it's not anything but, are we going to have the truth or are we going to have censorship? That's what we're seeing right now. I don't know why anybody would want to be against the side that's searching for truth. This week, I believe it was on Wednesday, at least with my social media accounts, you could scroll and you could find for days post after post by big content creators, Graham Allen, Tim Pool, Fox News, CBS, Turning Point USA's pages, that Erika Kirk is on this book tour for Charlie Kirk's last book that he was working on about the Sabbath. Which, okay, great. I think honoring the Sabbath is a great book topic, and it probably is a good book. But yet, throughout this entire book tour, we're being told by thousands, if not more, of content creators that we should stand against and stand up to Candice Owens, that we should no longer look for the truth, that we should disown, disavow, cancel, deplatform, pray for, and pray against Candice Owens because of what she's doing. That's a controlled censorship. Let's call it out for what it is. I hope you recognize it just as much as I do. But if you don't, let's call it for what it is. That is a giant controlled situation of people going up against Candice Owens and trying to completely smear her, disavow her, and deplatform what she's doing. It's a tactic. It's a tactic that our government uses quite often, right? Fast forward once again, or rewind back to COVID-19. And I can share the video. It would take me a minute to find, but I can find it. You know what? Let's do it. If you're listening, I'm typing on my computer. You probably heard it. Let's show this video. Power. Okay, here we go. Going to share this with you. If you're listening, great. If you're watching, even better. Let's watch this together.
San Antonio's Jessica Headley.
And I'm Ryan Wolf.
Our greatest responsibility is to serve our
Treasure Valley communities,
The El Paso, Las Cruces communities,
Eastern Iowa communities,
Mid-Michigan communities.
We are extremely proud of the quality, balanced journalism that CBS 4 News produces.
but we are concerned about troubling irresponsible, one-sided news stories plaguing our country.
Plaguing our country.
The sharing of biased and false news has become all too common on social media. More alarming, some media outlets publish these same fake stories without checking facts first.
The sharing of biased and
false news has become all too common on social media.
More alarming, some media outlets publish these stories simply aren't true without checking facts first. Unfortunately, some members of the media use their platforms to push their own personal bias and agenda to control exactly what people think.
That's what I'm talking about. This is what our government has done for a very long time. This is what our mainstream media news sources do all the time, right? And that wasn't even just like, that's the tip of the iceberg. That wasn't just a Fox News channel. That was Fox Ohio, Fox Iowa, Fox Indiana, Fox Dallas, Fox Utah. That was CBS, Fox, CNN, MSNBC. These are multiple news outlets who jump on and say verbatim the exact same thing. Luckily, they changed the city and state that they're reporting from, or else that would be awkward as hell if somebody in Texas was reading a news prompter and said, we're happy to support the local, Columbus, Ohio community. But this is what I'm talking about when I say that we have right in front of us the exact same thing happening again. This is a screenshot of somebody that I follow that screenshotted this week what it looked like. Let's see if I can pull it up. What his feed looked like on Wednesday. And it's exactly what my feed looked like on Wednesday as well. He's just the one that took a screenshot of it. So let me share this with you. Here we go. So look. Zoom in. You've got Colin Rugg, Graham Allen, the PBD podcast, the Patrick Bet Davis. You got Benny Johnson. You've got the Timcast News, the Misfit Patriot, Lancey Videos, Savannah Hernandez. Graham Allen again shows his face. Riley Gaines. Look at this. It's just constant feed of Candice Owens and Erika Kirk. So why do I show all of that to you? I show it to you to tell you, if somebody hasn't already, let's wake up and smell the coffee. You are constantly being lied to, manipulated by the mainstream media and by other influencers, influential people that have a following or a platform to tell you what the truth is. All for the goal, I believe, that they can get a bank account full of Middle Eastern money, a pat on the head from a certain prime minister telling, good job, you're doing exactly what we need to do. Now, I don't even say that because I don't believe it or because I'm not trying to call out who it is. We're talking about Bibi Netanyahu. We're talking about Israel. The reason why I bring any and all of this up is because this is exactly what our government and exactly what the government of Israel does. Bibi met with influencers months ago and said that the biggest problem that they have, the most important thing that we can go after is X and TikTok, so that we can help control what the American people are trying to believe what is the truth. Now, you can even dial it back to, and I got to think about how I want to word this. It's something that's been done before, and it's something that's happening every single day right now. We are seeing influencers like these people that I just showed you. Maybe they are getting paid. Maybe they're not. Maybe they do want to just share their views and it just happens to go with everybody else who's posting that same day. And they just happen to do it on accident. Or maybe we're being told again the COVID-19 vaccine is safe. It's 100% effective. It's going to keep you and your family safe. Maybe we're being told the exact same thing again, but except for now, instead of COVID-19 and vaccination, just poke in Charlie Kirk's assassination and Candice Owens. It's a very real thing that we are viewing right now. And why is this important to cover? Because there was a great awakening that was happening with Charlie Kirk and with Turning Point USA. He had his way of helping the youth of America, and even just Americans in general, to wake up to the realities of what we live in, to wake up to the truth. Charlie Kirk was on the side of truth. He was on the side of getting what is real, having honest dialogue and communication, and having open conversations about what we are experiencing right now in our country, in our world, in our states, in our government. He had the biggest influence, to the point of Charlie Kirk is one of the many people who can take credit for helping Donald Trump get elected this last election cycle. Because of what he did with Turning Point USA and all of his campus visits to not only broadcast truth and to openly debate ideas, but to also help register young Americans to be able to go out and vote. Charlie Kirk started to question what was happening in our government months, weeks, years leading up to his assassination, even days leading up to his assassination. He started to question. He was on the Patrick Bet-Davis program or podcast. He had an interview with Ben Shapiro on his show a day or two before he was killed. And he was starting to ask questions about what is going on in Israel. In the sense of, why is the Israeli government, why is Bibi Netanyahu, why is AIPAC so influential in our country? Why is that happening? Why is that something that we need? Why is that entire situation just not look, smell, or taste like a positive one? Charlie even said that he has to be careful asking these types of questions because he knew that something would happen to him if he questioned it too much. Candice showed the text messages that Charlie Kirk had. She showed and proved that that's exactly what he was doing. And what did Erika Kirk do this week on her book tour? Is she said, no, that's not true. I have his phone. He never questioned that he was going to be taken out or killed. We never saw any screenshots from Erika to prove or disprove what Candice had put out. We just were told by a grieving widow, that's not true. He didn't think that. Trust me. But yet with Candice, we're being shown actual evidence. That's one of the many things that I believe Candice is actually reporting the truth. Now, I'm not here to say that Candice is 100% truth and Erika Kirk is 0%. I believe that both of them have truth, and yet it's our job to be prayerful, to be mindful, and to be aware, and to sift through it ourselves to find what we believe is the truth. But yet Charlie Kirk questioning all of what our Israeli allies are doing in our government to influence it, he questions it, and then days or weeks later, he's killed. And then from that moment on, we just get nothing but Israeli promotion, propaganda, positive limelight painted in our government and in our world for the next 3 months since he was killed. I think one of the very first people to actually post about how sad it is that Charlie Kirk was killed was Bibi Netanyahu. It makes no sense. And yet what we've seen over the last couple months is that nothing can be said poorly about Israel. That if you even mention anything to do with the Jews, the Jewish religion, Israel, the Israeli government, Bibi Netanyahu, if you just mention freaking Ben Shapiro, if you mention anything that's negative or might even be misconstrued as negative towards those people, you're anti-Semitic. We have laws that are trying to be passed in our country right now that protect the speech against Israel and its government. But yet you can say, and I can say, I can't stand the American government. I can't stand Donald Trump. I think what they're doing in Washington, D.C. is horse shit. I can say that, but as soon as I input the Israeli government and what they're doing is horrible, as soon as I mention that I don't like or support or think that Bibi Netanyahu is a really good guy, that I think he is one of the most corrupt individuals we've ever seen in the history of our world, as soon as I mention any of that, there are laws out there that are now trying to be passed that can go after me, that can prosecute me. The First Amendment apparently just doesn't exist anymore, especially and specifically for our friends across the pond in the country that is the size of New Jersey. But yet when Charlie Kirk asked all these questions, when he turned down millions, hundreds of millions of dollars from Israeli supporters and Israeli, someone help me out with the word, sponsors, he turns down that money, he gets killed, and then weeks later, a month later, and this is all true, you can look it up, Turning Point USA accepts the money from those Israeli sponsors. Turning Point USA accepts hundreds of millions of dollars from the very people that Charlie Kirk said, I don't want them to have any influence in Turning Point USA at all, so we're not going to accept that money. Make that make sense to me, because it doesn't make any sense. But yet that's exactly what happened. So now what do we get? We get Erika Kirk going on her book tour this week, telling Candice Owens that what Candice is doing is wrong. And I just have a couple of points that I want to bring up. First and foremost, Erika Kirk is asked a question about forgiveness. And if we all watched the memorial event for Charlie Kirk that was in Phoenix, Arizona, a week after he was killed, which in my opinion was the fakest and gayest event we've ever seen, like ever. And I'm talking about like gayer than Sam Smith performing at the Grammys. Like, it was gay. We are told by Erika Kirk at that event that she has forgiven Tyler Robinson for what he did to her husband. That she has chosen to forgive and to move on. But yet this week, when she's asked about forgiving Candice Owens for asking questions, she says no. She is upset with Candice Owens. She wants her to stop spreading lies and hatred and defaming her husband and his legacy. It makes zero sense to me. You can actually, let's talk about the narrative. You can forgive in a week the guy that killed your husband, that we're told killed your husband, but yet months later, you can't forgive somebody who's asking questions about Charlie Kirk and his death and the shooter and the narrative that we're being told. You can't forgive her? Okay, check. Log that in the back of your head. Let's move on to my next point. Erika Kirk says that it's wrong what Candice Owens is doing because she's going after her family, her Turning Point USA family. and that Candice needs to stop. Here's the thing that Erika Kirk needs to get through her head, respectfully. You aren't just a family of people at Turning Point USA that can come together on Sundays and have family dinner together. The whole notion that that's your family and that you can't question my family, that you shouldn't question my family, that that's wrong of you to do, that's a bullshit notion. And I'll tell you why. Erika Kirk, within a week of Charlie Kirk being killed, completely took over as CEO, president, leader of Turning Point USA. So now here's what happens when you do that to any organization. Here's what happens. You now have to answer hard questions as to why your organization or company or business might be doing something that looks a little fishy to others. You have to answer that question. And you don't get to play the I'm a grieving widow card another time, especially when we're asking questions about your organization. If we're asking questions to you that are personal about you, you could play that card. I've got no problem with that. If you need time to grieve, like all of us should, go for it. But if you're now going to step into, less than a week after your husband's death, you're going to step into the leadership role, the head honcho suite position at your husband's company, you're going to step up and now say, I'm going to lead us to a greater tomorrow and future. You now have to answer those questions. Like, why is your company accepting donor money from people your husband didn't want to accept money from? Why is your company now putting on events and completely agreeing with narratives? Why is your company now getting upset at Candice Owens? This is another point I wanted to talk about. We'll just go right into it. Why is your organization upset at Candice Owens for making money off of this story when your organization has made nothing but hundreds of millions of dollars, right? Just by selling the t-shirt, the white t-shirt with the black print that says freedom on it. I almost bought one from them. I'm glad I didn't. They made, I think it was like 80 to $100 million just off of that. And then on top of that, you had a recent gala event that happened at Mar-a-Lago where it was $10,000 a plate just to even get in. And they raised hundreds of millions of dollars for Turning Point USA and for their future because it was an event for and in behalf of Charlie Kirk and his legacy. And you have people there like Glenn Beck speaking. You have people there like, what's his name? Rob McCone, who's speaking. Erika's mad at Candice Owens, who, let's establish this, had a show before Charlie Kirk was killed, who had a podcast before Charlie Kirk lost his life, who was making money well in advance to what her recent shows have been about. But yet Erika now is upset that people are monetizing off of Charlie Kirk's death. Candice Owens didn't need this story to blow up her show. She was already one of the top podcasts. And yet now you're upset, where you're not upset when you made money, when Turning Point made money, when other events, galas, or fundraisers were brought and given to you. It makes no sense to me. It doesn't. So this entire campaign of we should just let it all lie, we should not look into it, I think it's the biggest farce and the biggest psyop that we've ever seen. Questions need to be asked. They should be asked. Because if we're going to stand and live through another event like this, we have to wake up to what I said from the very beginning. You can have truth or you can have the narrative. One is real, one is not. You can have the red pill or the blue pill. Which one are you going to take? Because if you decide that you're going to go with the narrative, then you have to realize that you're going against anybody in history who has ever stood for or questioned truth. You cannot find me somebody in the history of the world who stood against truth, who didn't question truth, and was on the winning side of any battle, history event, or political movement. You can't, because it doesn't exist. So if you guys want to stand on the side of, I support Erika Kirk, which, look, before I continue, I support her. I think it's extremely sad what's happened to her and her family. I can about imagine losing my wife and having to raise our boys by myself or vice versa. Completely at a human level, as a Christian, I can completely understand how this is horrible that you have to live through this. My heart goes out to you, to your kids. I think it's an extreme tragedy that has happened. But on that flip side, if you're going to support her and by doing so believe that what you're being told by the FBI, local law enforcement, Turning Point USA, by Erika Kirk is the full gospel truth, I wish you well. I don't think that's going to end well for you. Because why now? After Candice Owens has been doing, she does shows Monday through Friday. She does 5 shows a week. And she's been doing those shows since Charlie Kirk was killed. So we're talking early September. It's now been 3 months, right? 3 months. Why now would there be a massive campaign to discredit, disavow, deplatform, and call Candice Owens a liar? Why now? I believe it's because she's right over the target. She's right at it. She's about to uncover the truth. She's about to uncover something that is extremely big that will completely turn this entire situation upside down and on its head. The more people that shout against somebody or someone, the closer that person or that individual is to the truth, in my opinion. The more people that stand against somebody, the more I kind of like to believe that that person was probably onto something and was probably looking into or believing in or speaking the truth, right? Look at anybody in the history of our world. Look at any gospel leader. Look at any religious leader. The more people that stand against somebody, the more likely it is that they're speaking the truth. So I'm going to stay on the side of ask questions, look into it, look for the truth, and actually do your best to find out what is happening. That's where I stand on the great fake and gay psyop, which is the Charlie Kirk assassination that we find ourselves in. Now, moving on, because I think this is extremely important that we discuss what's happening in our country this week, that while all of us were tuned into the Charlie Kirk and the Erika Kirk versus Candice Owens, while all of us were tuned into that, we've been missing a lot of what's happening in our country, what's happening in our government, and what's happening in other events. So let's talk about this, okay? And I'm going to show you here. So let's see here. just recently, geez, I can't even find it online. Trying to see if I can pull it up. Here we go. Got it right here. So this is why I say, and this is even more evidence to why I believe in this entire event is manufactured. It's being fed to us so that we can be completely distracted as to what's going to be happening in our country and in the world in the next couple of weeks and months. And on top of that, they just announced this week as well. And this is not my endorsement to get sucked into it, even though I'm a huge law, crime, true crime junkie, that the Tyler Robinson court case, this week he showed up in court for the first time about the Charlie Kirk assassination. The Utah judge who's over it decided that he was going to make it all live streamed. It's all going to be on the news. He was going to allow cameras into the courtroom. So I believe all of that's happening so that shit like this gets completely swept underneath the rug. If you're listening, don't worry. Of course, I'll read what I'm going to show you. This was on December 10th. So this was 2 days ago. This was Wednesday. The House passes $900 billion defense bill with major aid for Ukraine and Israel. The measure, which sets policy and funding priorities for the Pentagon, advanced by a vote of 312 to 112 and now heads to the Senate for consideration. While the bill authorizes Pentagon programs, it does not provide money for them. Congress must still pass a separate spending bill for the fiscal year ending September 2026. This bill allocates $400 million annually for the next 2 years for the Ukraine Security Assistance Initiative, a program that reimburses U.S. defense contractors for weapons sent to Kyiv's armed forces. It also provides $600 million to sustain missile defense programs in Israel, including the Iron Dome and David's Sling system, which intercept rockets and missiles. So while you were paying attention to what Erika Kirk was saying, what Candice Owens was saying, hell, it got me. This past Wednesday, we have now millions, hundreds of millions, hundreds of billions of dollars being sent to Israel and to Ukraine. Did you miss it? Did you catch it? I think I can speak for most of us. We missed it. Why? Because once again, we're so distracted. And that's exactly why I believe it's a psyop. Because it distracts us from what our government is doing right behind our backs. Does anyone else remember 2 months ago, less than 2 months ago, our government had to shut down for almost a full month? Over a month. Because we couldn't agree on spending packages for the American people. And so multiple people who needed it, I'm talking about the people that need it, not the Somalis up in Minnesota who abuse the system, just like a bunch of other people across the country. People lost their benefits. They had to get furloughed from their jobs. Some lost their jobs. All of that happened because our government couldn't agree on how much money can we spend to help healthcare, or how much money can we spend to help the American people. I'm talking about Americans, right? Not illegals. And yet they can pass a bill to send $900 billion like that pretty damn quick. If you don't believe that we are an occupied nation that is being controlled by our quote unquote allies, this is once again another perfect example as to why you're probably not looking with your eyes open. We are being controlled, we are being manipulated, and it is as clear as it can get. If you didn't wake up during the COVID years, I urge and I pray that you wake up now. Because this is going to continue and continue to happen. Even to the point now. What's happening in Argentina? We're going to do a full episode on this on Monday because I wanted to talk about it today. That was the goal, was just to do an entire episode on it today. And yet we talked about what we talked about, which I still think is very important. But as a teaser, as an appetizer for Monday's episode, our government right now is going into Argentina to aid in their government's overthrow or the change of power, right? That's what we're seeing right now. We're seeing the color guard change from red to blue in Argentina. And we're being told it's because of drug or quote unquote fishing boats that are off the coast that are smuggling drugs into southern countries that then bring it into the United States. We're being told that it's because of crime and violence and a government that's completely controlled by, a dictator in Argentina. But yet there's a real reason why it's happening. And even just this last week, one of the many reasons why people like me and other, I'm going to say conspiracy theorists, who, like I've said before, that's a turn on for me, so be careful. Don't say that too much around me. Why we believe that's not the narrative, and why we believe we're going in for other reasons, like to install a Federal Reserve-like banking institution. We're going after their oil and gas reserves. We're being told constantly that that's not the truth, that that's not the case. But yet this week, what happened? Well, we took over a oil tanker off the coast of Argentina. Let me pull that up. Because Trump even had to come out and talk about it, because it was that in the limelight. And yet we're being told that that's not the case. That's not why we're going to Argentina. But let me show you this.
As you probably know, we've just seized a tanker on the coast of Venezuela, a large tanker, very large. Largest one ever seized, actually. And other things are happening, so.
Can you explain a little more about this Venezuelan oil tanker and share a little more information?
Well, I'll let the people do it, but you see the result, and I guess they probably have released the pictures by now, pretty soon. You'll discuss that with the appropriate people later on, but no, it was seized for a very good reason.
The oil tanker, who owns that oil tanker?
You'll get that information later.
Okay, and have you spoken to Maduro since your last conversation?
No,
or
I
has it
haven't.
only been one conversation?
No.
So once again, we don't get any news. We don't get any, we get nothing. But yet, like, it's a full-blown, it's a full ass taking over. Like, let me show you this. Because we're not just talking about like a friendly American boat strolls up to the oil tanker, knocks on, its door and says, "Hey, can we come in? We're going to take you over." This is like a full seizure of the oil tanker. Like drones, dressed head to toe in full military tactical gear, taking it over. You can't tell me that the reason we're doing this is because of crime and drugs. You can't tell me that. It's pretty clear that this has a lot more to do with oil, with the reserves of oil that Venezuela has, with the people who are in government and in power down there, that certain people like our government and the Israeli government, they don't like. The fact that Venezuela doesn't have a centralized banking system that's owned by a certain group or a certain couple of families. There's a lot more reasons as to why we're in Venezuela other than they've got a lot of drugs. And it's something that, once again, as Trump says, we might be told why, but I don't think we're going to be told exactly why. Because if we were told exactly why, we probably wouldn't like the answer. But like I said, we're going to talk about that more on Monday. But get ready for it, because there's a lot that we have to dive into and a lot that we have to go over. And as we learn about everything that's going on, I've always said this, I'll continue to say this. I hope what I'm providing for you, the listener, the viewer, is information that you like, information and news that you can look to as a credible source. And I, of course, always ask to like and subscribe, to share. If you're not following us on Instagram, please do so. You can follow us at WeTheFuture_USA. We are on Apple, Spotify, Rumble. We have a Rumble account just in case. I mean, it might happen sooner rather than later. Our YouTube gets shut down, so we'll have everything on Rumble already. I am now also on X. My X account you can find on my, let's see, I don't even know what the X account is, but you can find me there. You can find me on there at Bryce_Wheeler1. But if you're not following us, if you're not subscribed on our YouTube channel, please subscribe. Not only does it help me, not only does it help the algorithms, but overall, my goal is to be a influencer that can actually put out truth, that you guys can actually turn to, that isn't bought, that isn't paid for, that isn't fake and gay, right? So like, subscribe, comment, share it with people. Make sure that we fight against the algorithm that is oh so against any truth in the world that we live in. But that's going to do it for me today. We've talked about a lot, and hopefully it's been stuff that is beneficial for you. Overall, I think it's just extremely important that we wake up. We wake up to the reality that our country isn't what our country used to be. That if there really was any truth to... Well, let me back up. This will be my final point. My final message. If Candice was actually lying, Erika Kirk and Turning Point USA would sue her. They would sue her to oblivion. But why do they not? Why do they just go on news cycles? Why do they just go on their podcast and just ask her to stop? Why don't they press charges? Why don't they sue for defamation? Because if they did, it would open it up to discovery. And that's exactly what they don't want to have happen. That's exactly what Candice Owens wants to have happen. That's exactly what I want to happen. So that we can open it up to discovery and we can actually find out what is going on with the entire case, with the entire event. If Erika was actually wanting to find out the truth, she would support what Candice Owens is doing. But she's not. So I'll leave it at that. Hope you all have a great weekend. Hope you all enjoy the time with family. We will be back on Monday with a new episode, and on Wednesday and Friday, new schedule. Monday, Wednesday, Friday, we're going to be doing shows. We have our first guest on next week, so I'm excited about that. But I hope you all have a great weekend, and we will talk with you soon. I'm Bryce Wheeler, and this is We, the Future. Catch you later.